Morning, everyone. I'm Kristen Chandoli with Generations Health. Thank you so much for joining us for our program today, Rethinking Quality of Life When Your Young Loved One Has Memory Problems, presented by Jennifer FitzPatrick. We are so grateful to have Ingleside sponsoring today's program, and in just a moment, I'm going to invite them to join us. But first, there's a few things I want to go over with you. Everyone is muted to eliminate any background noise. However, this is an interactive program, so please feel free to ask questions, answer questions, or if you have any comments on the discussion that is taking place. To do this, you can use the chat feature. As a reminder, to find the chat, you can scroll over the bottom of your screen, and there you will see a banner that pops up. On the banner, there's a bubble that says chat. When you click on that, the chat feature will launch and will most likely show up on the right-hand side of your screen. When you use the chat, your questions, comments, or answers will only be seen by our sponsor, our presenter Jennifer, and myself. This is simply for privacy reasons. Again, we encourage your participation, so please do use the chat feature. Jennifer is great about keeping an eye on the chat to answer your questions. As I mentioned, we are so grateful to have Ingleside as our sponsor for today's program. At this time, to share a little information with you, I'd like to invite Kirsten Parsons from Ingleside to join me.
Hello, and thank you for the introduction, Kristen. I'm going to share my screen and introduce you to our communities. I am sure that many of you are familiar with Ingleside. I thank you so much for joining us today. Jennifer is always so informative, and so I'm excited for the education that we have ahead of us. I just want to introduce myself for those of you who do not know me, and also our three communities. Alrighty, so I am your point of contact at Ingleside for our assisted living level of care. Assisted living in our communities, we have both traditional and our memory support specific models of care at the assisted living level. We do have three communities. Our flagship community is Ingleside at Rock Creek in Northwest DC. We have Westminster at Lake Ridge, our sister community in Lake Ridge, Virginia, located just outside of the Woodbridge area. It is our most rural community with, I think, 60 acres, beautiful property. And then we have Ingleside at King Farm, our youngest community. It is in Rockville, Maryland, Montgomery County. I do want to let you know about our memory support respite program. As we have availability, we do accept respite applications for our memory support neighborhoods in our traditional assisted living. At our Ingleside at Rock Creek community, we just opened our second neighborhood for memory support and have welcomed some wonderful families quite recently. And we do have availability presently for respite. In our Ingleside at King Farm community, we are opening our second neighborhood in March, and we will have availability for respite at that time as well. So you have here my contact information. Please do take down my phone number or email. I would love to answer your questions about our communities, as well as our memory support options and our respite that we're able to offer at this time. We are continuing care retirement communities. So if you have questions more geared towards independent living or even skilled nursing, I would be happy to point you in the right directions to my colleagues. I am your point of contact for our assisted living level of care. So thank you so much, Kristen, and I will share my contact information again at the end of the presentation as well.
Great. Thank you so much, Kirsten. We're about to get started, but first I'd like to give you a little information about our presenter. Do you want to better understand what quality of life means for your loved one who has dementia? If you answered yes, this virtual event was created especially for you. Our presenter is the author of Cruising Through Caregiving, Reducing the Stress of Caring for Your Loved One, and a longtime gerontology instructor at Johns Hopkins University. A popular media expert, she has been featured in the Wall Street Journal, Fast Company, Forbes, the Huffington Post, and the Washington Post. When she's not working, she can be found taking suggestions for what to binge watch on Netflix, Amazon Prime, or Hulu. Please join me in welcoming from Kent Island, Maryland, Jennifer FitzPatrick.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to Rethinking Quality of Life when your loved one has memory problems. I know we have a lot of different sort of folks on this program today. Some of you might actually already reside at Ingleside, and you maybe are in the independent section. Maybe you have a spouse that has some memory issues. And some of you maybe live in the community and you just want to hear a little bit about how do you help your loved one have better quality of life, your parent, your spouse, your aunt, your grandparent. So I'm going to start out by what I think a lot of people have as preconceived notions about what quality of life means when somebody has memory problems. And I'm going to use myself as an example because I started working in a nursing home when I was 16 years old. And I'm 48. I've been in this field a very long time. And I can tell you that when I was in high school and I worked in a nursing home, I thought, gosh, I can't believe that so many people leave their loved one in a nursing home. And of course, most of the people that I encountered in that nursing home had some sort of memory issue. Not everybody, but most of them did. And when I was in college, in graduate school, I continued to think about it like that. But when I first started having a quote unquote professional, real job after school, I worked in an adult daycare center and I worked in an assisted living community. And also I worked as a community social worker for a while. And during that time, my idea about quality of life for somebody who has memory issues changed a lot. And I remember thinking, I can't believe I ever judged, and I did. I think judge is the right word. I judged families who had their loved ones in a nursing home or in an assisted living when I was young. And it's because I really didn't see the struggles up close about what it takes to take care of somebody with memory problems. There's really no right way to give quality of life to somebody who has dementia or a cognitive impairment. There's lots of ways to do it. Keeping the loved one at home, it's possible to have quality of life. But there's a lot of quality of life also in nursing home and senior living if you make the right choice. So today is all about doing what's right for your loved one. There's really no one size fits all approach, but today is all about how do you maximize quality of life for yourself and your loved one. And I want you to be thinking about yourself too, because your quality of life matters as well. So this is my grandmom and her best friend, her cousin, her first cousin, Marion, Aunt Marion, we called her. And everybody's got a different definition of quality of life, but I can tell you what my grandmother's was. This is one of my favorite pictures of her. This is how they always were. They were like teenagers when they were together. And my grandmom's definition of quality of life was really all about family. And the things that she liked to do, she liked watching shows like The Good Wife, Nashville. She liked watching movies. She liked going to the movies. She loved to go out to dinner. And here we are out to dinner when this photograph was taken. She loved anything to do with spending time with her cousins, her friends. She had a lot of friends, swimming, the beach, and spending time with her kids and her grandkids. And that really was quality of life for her. But as you know, that some of you might be sitting there and saying, well, that wouldn't be enough for me to have quality of life. Everybody's got a different definition. Some people think quality of life is really, it's important to work. Some people feel like that's part of their definition of quality of life. Some people feel like their definition of quality of life includes certain types of exercises or participating in classes. Some people might say, and I will say the other piece for my grandmother was church for sure. She was very Catholic, went to mass a lot. So for a lot of people, everybody's individual and everybody's idea of what quality of life is different. And feel free to write in at any point this morning, if you would like, in the chat section, some things that are important to you. So I encourage all of us when we're evaluating our quality of life to look at our life sort of as a pie. And I think for a lot of us when we're older, especially as we go through the aging process, everybody says physical health. I just want to be physically healthy. That's the most important piece of quality of life. But I think all of this on this pie, some people care only about physical health, and that takes up their whole pie. But for many of us that work, or we want to be financially stable, or we want to have a social life. So I would say for my grandma, her physical health was important, but her spiritual health, her social health, those were the other two that she cared the most about. And so I want you to all think about yourself and your loved one. Are there any, do you feel like your definition of quality of life and your loved one's definition of quality of life, do you check off all of these boxes right now? So I'm going to give everybody a moment to write in, or are you just checking off a couple that are important to you? So write in whatever you want to share with us. Well, maybe we can get, if no participants are writing in, I'm going to give you a few moments. Yeah, Frank and Barbara say really all of them are important. And for a lot of people, yeah. It's interesting though, because I will tell you, everybody's saying all so far. How can they balance with all? That's interesting, Eva. So the reason that I wanted to share this pie for you is for some people, let's say that they're widowed. They might say, I don't need an intimate relationship anymore. That's not something that I really am concerned about at this point in my life. Some people feel that way. Adele says, quality of life for me involves the spending time with pets, reading, working as a senior move manager, spending time with friends, and baking. Well said. So think about it, Adele, if you were to unfortunately, if you were ever to have dementia, maybe I wonder if your people that love you know that, if they know how important baking is to you, reading, being around your pets. So what I want everybody to really be thinking about now, everybody was sharing like what is important for them, but I want you to be thinking about what are the parts of this pie that are most important to your loved one who has memory problems, do you think? And how are you making sure that they are met? And I'm going to give everybody time. Feel free to write in if the spiritual part, like Adele shared about I think maybe she would look at that as social, but the pet piece of it is maybe good. She might put that in her psychological health, but everybody has different priorities. And so I want you all to be thinking about what part is most important to, do you think, for your loved one? So take a few moments and feel free to share. I'm gonna keep talking, but feel free to share, and I'll stop if people write in. But I'm wondering if some of you have never really thought about it. Not to say you're not a great spouse or daughter or grandson. I'm not saying that. I'm saying sometimes we're just focused on the day-to-day. My loved one has Alzheimer's. My loved one has frontal temporal dementia. My loved one has Lewy body dementia. I'm not looking at their life as a pie. I'm just trying to get by. And that's okay too. But this is a moment that I'm inviting you to think about it. What do you think the pieces of the pie that are most important to your loved one with memory issues are? And could you, if for those parts, are you able to help them get those needs met? So Frank and Barbara say social, spiritual, and a form of intimacy. Okay. Adele, I think Adele says, my mom who had dementia for 15 years liked to listen to music, play cards. She wasn't big on socializing. But okay, that's fine. That's good. And some people really aren't. I think a lot of us, when those of us who have worked in senior living, we want people to be joiners because there's so much data to support that socialization is really good for our physical and mental health. But that said, some people, that isn't the most important. So we have somebody, I'm not, T Scales says social health, physical health, and spiritual life is important for older adults. So in general, that's your thought. Okay. So again, what I'd like to invite everybody to do, and oops, looks like my PowerPoint went off the rails here. Zero, I want you to think about your quality of life as someone who cares about someone with dementia. And I want you to think about your loved one's quality of life. So where would you put your quality of life today and why? So 0, you'd be like, me, I have no quality of life. Or I'm at a 50. my quality of life's in the middle, or I'm at 100. My quality of life it couldn't be better. So I want to invite you to write in and share where you are right now. Okay, everybody, this is just a number. All we're looking for is you to give us a number. You guys shared a lot more than that a few moments ago. Just give us an idea of where do you feel like your quality of life is today. Excellent. Frank and Barbara say they are at a 90. Sherry, you're saying you're unable to enter info on the screen. You actually just did. So what you wrote just now, all you need to do is put your number in that same spot where you wrote, I'm unable to enter info on the screen. T scale says 75%. Wonderful. Anybody else want to write in? So I'm curious for Frank and Barbara, why do you say 90? That's really high. If you're taking care of, or you have a loved one who has memory problems, that's incredibly high. I would like to hear from you. And T scales, I would love to hear from you. Why is your 75 isn't bad? That's like a C plus. So why would you say, or C, it's not horrible. Why would you say 75? Like, what do you attribute that to? What do you attribute those relatively high scores? Oh, Sherry says 90. Awesome. Great. And Sherry, if you're at a 90, so what I'm trying to do is if you have, okay. Oh, okay. So Frank and Barbara are saying this is just a learning experience for them. This really isn't, they're not taking care of somebody who has memory problems or have a loved one with memory problems. Okay, that explains it, Frank and Barbara, because a lot of times people who are really navigating a loved one who has some memory issues and memory concerns, a lot of times they're a lot lower. But Shari, I'd love to hear from you too. So I'm gonna, feel free to write in. Everybody's welcome to write in more, and I'm gonna keep going. And again, I would like to invite you to talk about your loved one now. So if you are, and I know that some people on here don't have a loved one with memory issues, I'd love for you to share. I'd love for you to share that where you think your loved one who has memory problems is. Are they at a 0? Are they at a 50? Are they at 100? So T scale says that their loved one is at a 60. Anybody want to share? Anybody else? So T scales, what I would like to say, and this is what today is all about. It's all about wherever your number is, and even Frank and Barbara, if you want to get to 100, today's about that, looking at how you can improve your quality of life, but 90 is pretty darn good. But also for the person that you care about, how can we get that number up? And I'm guessing that a lot of people would say that their loved one's quality of life is much lower than 60%, but I don't have a lot of people writing in. You're very welcome to write in. I'd really love to hear from you. So that's what the rest of this is about, is how do we boost that number? And obviously this is subjective. This is a subjective exercise to give your quality of life a number. And of course it can vary on different days for sure. You had an experience, you had a bad conversation, you're maybe something's going on with you, you don't feel well, but in all seriousness, that this can, if once we self-identify a number where we are, we can move that number up. Let's talk about how. So for those of you who are taking care of a loved one who has a memory problem, I want to ask you some questions. Are you noticing wandering? Shari, excuse me. Shari's saying, I'm dealing with a sister with dementia. I think her quality of life is at best a 20%. Her condition is such that really little can improve. She is now on hospice. Okay. So Shari, what I would say to that is, so it sounds like your sister is at end stage, which people, I think a lot of us who are taking care of, and I don't know if she has another condition or if she has a type of dementia that has led to end stage like Alzheimer's, because right now, sadly, all of the dementias, Alzheimer's, frontotemporal, Lewy body, vascular, people pass away from them. Now, it may be that your sister has another condition that she's dying from, and that's why she's in hospice. But I think, and I'm not sure if you want to answer this, Shari, I'd love to hear from you. But I think that it's really that what we see a lot of times, believe it or not, is when people start to move into the hospice, a lot of times their quality of life actually improves, because hospice really is focused on the last 6 months or so. And some people live longer than 6 months once they start hospice. It's about keeping that person comfortable. It's about doing what we can to keep that person as comfortable as possible and to give their quality of life. So what I would suggest, Shari, and I don't know how often you get to see your sister, if she's at end stage dementia, we know where her physical health is. Hospice is dealing with trying to keep her comfortable. She probably work and volunteer is not going to probably be that important. If she has an intimate relationship with a spouse or partner, we want her to have access to that person to be able to touch and hold hands and get hugs and all that good stuff. Financial health probably isn't a concern because this is end of life. And hopefully if she's dying of a type of dementia, that she has all of her affairs in order, because she's not going to be able to make really any updates right now. But really hospice, what it can really focus on right now is this spiritual piece too. If your loved one, if your sister Shari is religious in any way, this is a time when she's later in life, if she, any kind of religion, if she's Jewish, if she's Catholic, Protestant, if she's Muslim, that maybe music that is spiritual, or if she's not, maybe just, having candles on in the room where she is, like whatever might be comforting to her in a spiritual way. Social life, having visitors that she wants to see. And I think it's really important that at the end of life with dementia, it's really important that we know what to expect, because that person is not, I've had lots of family members on hospice over the years. And when somebody is dying and they have dementia, they're not going to be able to have conversations typically like you and I would have. So it's more about maybe going and putting lotion on her hands. She probably isn't very verbal anymore, but sitting with her, maybe putting music on that she enjoys. Maybe if she likes football, putting the Super Bowl on in a couple of weeks when she, in the background, if that's something that she likes. Maybe just sitting with her, reading a book to her, maybe anything that people that she cares about can visit with her. And then psychological health, just again, going back with the physical with hospice, just doing everything we can to make her comfortable. But it's tough. I know it's very, very tough when we have a loved one. Sherry, this is great, Sherry. I've had previous experience with hospice, and part of the reason I said my quality of life is 90% is I feel like we've done everything we can. And my sister and I have had many conversations over the years that make me feel like I'm doing what she wants. And everybody, I hope this is one of, and Ingleside, Kirsten, I so appreciate you running this program, because this, not just me speaking to you as a professional, but this is the wonderful gift that you get when you hear from other people who have loved ones with dementia, that having the conversations ahead of time, knowing what they want. Hospice truly is nothing to fear. Hospice is really your partner. And when you know the right time to work with hospice, when there's a prognosis of 6 months or less, and it doesn't mean your loved one will die in 6 months, they could live for another year or two, that happens sometimes, but that you have peace of mind. And that's what we want for all of you, to have that quality of life and that peace of mind that Sherry is enjoying, even though it's a very tough time in her family. Adele says maybe she can check out the end of life doulas. Jen says, can you help with anger issues in the dementia patient, how to handle? Jen, I know that that's a big issue. I'm going to talk just, Adele, thank you, Adele. Adele says, my dad was in hospice for 3 years. Yeah, it happens. People sometimes quote unquote graduate from hospice. But Jen, what I want to say about the anger, I do want to continue with the presentation. I don't want to spend too much time on anger. We at Generations run tons of events and programs about behavioral issues and emotional issues in dementia. Jen, what I want to invite you to do while I keep going with the presentation is I want you to give me a specific example that you're dealing with your loved one. What exactly is going on? Give as much detail as you can, and then we'll workshop it. I definitely want to address it, but I want it to be specific to you. I can give you all sorts of generalities, but tell me about an angry incident or incidents. Tell me as much detail as you possibly can, how you've handled it, what other people in the family have done, what is maybe precipitated the angry incident. Just give me as much detail as you possibly can. And I would love to workshop that with you and do it for everybody, because I'm sure there's other people that have that question as well. But I'd rather not give you generalities. But we do just know we do have a lot of programs at Generations where we talk about just that. So I wanted to just ask, for those of you who are caregiving for somebody or helping, maybe your loved one is in the early stages of dementia, but they could also be mid, late. For the family members on today, though, have you noticed any wandering, walking out of the house, driving away in a car, jumping on a bus? This happens. It would be very rare if your loved one never wanders. So I want you to tally up right now. So I want, on a little piece of paper or pen or on your iPhone or on your computer, I want you to tally up how many of these are you noticing? Are you noticing wandering? Is wandering an issue? Have physical health issues gotten worse lately? Now, people tend to think of Alzheimer's and other types of dementia as being cognitive, and they are, absolutely, but it impacts the physical body. So while your loved one might have a dementia, but they also have cancer, or they also have heart disease, or they also have arthritis, or they also have diabetes. So I'm asking you to give a check or an X, if your loved one, whether it's due to the dementia or it's due to another physical issue, have physical issues gotten worse lately? Has ambulating gotten worse lately? So getting up from a chair, transferring, walking into another room. Maybe your loved one uses a wheelchair or a walker or a cane, and they're struggling using those devices. So ambulation has gotten worse, walking or transferring. So those are 3. So I want you to keep track. First one is the person wandering. Is the physical health getting worse? Is ambulation gotten worse? More behavioral challenges, like a lot of angry outbursts, like Jen shared. Are you noticing more behavioral issues, like more crying, more yelling, more pushing? anything that you would consider like, oh gosh, my loved one's behavior is making me nuts. And you're allowed to feel that way, by the way. You're allowed to feel like your loved one's behavior is making you crazy. But put a check or an X if you feel that. So is medication compliance fallen by the wayside? So some of you, I know there's all sorts of different situations right here where you might, your loved one who has dementia might live across the country. Your loved one who has dementia might live with you. I know it's all sorts of different, but have you, especially if this person happens to still live alone, is medication compliance fallen by the wayside, that they're not following through with their medicine? Because there are still people who have dementia that live by themselves. Or they're in the early stages and they are still responsible for their medicine. You're not somebody else isn't responsible. So is this another one you can give a check or not? And then family members, I want you to be really, really honest and give yourself a check if you find yourself functioning as more than a loved one, more than a loved one. Like, are you functioning as a housekeeper? Are you functioning as a cook, as a nursing assistant, as a medicine aide, as a driver? Now, a lot of people are doing these things and not necessarily realizing it. Maybe you're functioning as all of these right now. You're prompting for medicine. You're making all the meals. You're driving them to every doctor's appointment. You're cleaning up after them because they forget to do their dishes. So are you more than a loved one? Are you sort of functioning almost like a staff person or doing stuff that it's not you just spending time together as husband and wife or sisters or mom and child? You're functioning in these other capacities. So give yourself a check or an X if that applies to you. Are you propping up somebody who's living independently? So for those of you who have a loved one who's living in the community and they have some kind of memory impairment, cognitive impairment, dementia, if you're propping up your loved one, that they think they're living independently, but they really couldn't get along without you, without a lot of help that you're providing, or maybe you're spouses or partners and you live in the same house or apartment, and there's no way your loved one could go on anymore if you weren't there. You're propping that person up. Give yourself a check mark. Okay, so I want to go back through it one more time. I want everybody to get their pen and want everybody to write in how many checks. We're going to go through it one more time. Have you noticed more wandering or any wandering from your loved one? That would be a 1. Physical health conditions have gotten worse lately. Arthritis, diabetes, heart disease, or simply physical manifestations because of the dementia. 2. 3, has ambulating getting worse, getting around, walking. 4 is behavioral changes. See, I can't count. My husband is an accountant in finance and he is not amused by that. I have him double check all my math. So 4, behavioral changes, more angry outbursts, more crying, pushing, hitting. 5, medication compliance fallen by the wayside, that they are responsible for their own medicine and they're not really taking it anymore. 6 would be you are functioning not just as a wife, not just as a daughter, not just as a sister, not just as a grandson, but you're doing housekeeping, medicine prompting, you're helping them in the bathroom, you're driving them everywhere. And then the last one would be propping up your loved one, that they couldn't be living alone without all of your support or independently without your support. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Write in the chat section, if you would, what number you would give. So I've got a 4, I've got an 8. Jen, I got your note and I am going to address it in a little bit. Thank you. That's some good stuff there. It's not good that this is happening with your family. Another 4, Pamela, but it's good information. So I can help you a little bit more. And the other thing I would like to ask you, Jen, is where does your dad live and who does he live with, if anybody? So I got some 4s, I got some 6s. Adele says an 8 when her parents were alive. Okay, so here's what I want to clarify. If you find yourself, I would say at a 3 or higher, it really might be time to examine quality of life. And does your loved one have quality of life in the situation that they're in now? Whether they're at a private home, whether they're in an independent living section of a community like Ingleside, whether they're in the assisted living section of a community like Ingleside. Because if you're seeing 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, it probably is that you need to do things a little bit differently for them to have better quality of life. Because all of these that we just talked about, wandering is going to impact their quality of life in a negative way. I know that Kirsten could give you countless, and I can give you countless examples of people that I know have worked with clients and patients, as well as personally know people who have wandered out in the world from their home, and it was not good results, that they had frostbite.
Hi, everybody. Jennifer is working on reestablishing her connection and getting back on the webinar. So just be patient with us and hopefully she'll be back very soon.
Thanks, Kristen. I was just about to jump on and say that for those who are not seeing the text in the chat. Kristen, I don't know what our wait time is going to be, but I am available to answer any questions if our audience members do have any questions about Ingleside at this time.
Kirsten, that's a great idea. Oh, here comes Jennifer. She's back.
All right, sounds good. Jennifer, welcome back.
Here I am. Please forgive the interruption. I apologize sincerely. I am not going to put my camera on because obviously we got disconnected, and I want to try to preserve as much as possible the internet. I don't know what's going on, so I do apologize. But okay, so any of these happening, obviously, when someone is the early stages of dementia, a lot of times that person is going to be still managing their medicine, but in the later stages, hopefully not. But if that person is in the early stages and they're not following their medicine directives, that is definitely going to impact their quality of life. Absolutely. Physically, cognitively, everything. This is not good for either one of you if this is going to be indefinite, if your functioning is more than a loved one, if it's going to be indefinite. Propping up the loved one who's living independently. And I am so curious to see if anybody, if that resonated for anybody. And sadly, oh, I cannot believe this, Kristen, I cannot see the previous chat. Can you please put Jen's case in there for me so I can see that in the chat section? And also, just go back and share. Sorry about that. I just want everybody to know that that I can't see anything that anybody wrote before. I am so very sorry about that. Technology, see, this is why we need to get back in person, right? Which thankfully we're starting to do a lot more of. Okay. But if anybody wants to write in that they are propping up their loved one, this is very, very common, that the person thinks that they're independent, but they're really not. And then again, Kristen, if you could give me Jen's situation with her dad, just cut and paste it and put it in my chat, I would be so grateful so I can address that. And then we talked about, so here's the thing. If you're at a 3 or a 4 or a 5, and if you'd put your loved one's quality of life on the lower side, only a couple of people wrote in, you got to change something. I'm not telling you what you need to change, but something needs to change. What are the potential consequences of waiting? So if your loved one's not taking their medicine and you're functioning as their housekeeper and their medicine aide and their driver, and their ambulation is getting worse, what do you think are the possible consequences of waiting to change something? Now I'm looking for you to write in, honestly, now, so I know my chat section's working. So if someone could write in, what are the possible consequences of not changing something? Even if Kristen or Kirsten can write in, I would appreciate it, just because I want to make sure the chat is working on my end. Oh, great. Okay. Yeah, so Eva's saying skipping meds could have adverse effects. Jen says the caregiver will be absolutely exhausted. Absolutely. And that when we are burned out, then we do not do well. We are not taking great care of our loved one. Yeah, Frank and Barbara said, theoretically, you both lose out on quality of life. 100%. Absolutely. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate you letting me know my chat section is. And Kristen, safety. Yes, safety is going to be more of a worry, Pamela says. Kristen, if you could put Jen's information in that chat section, I'd really appreciate it. So what, for everybody, it's going to be different. Like some people, if you're in the independent living section of Ingleside, it might be time to really look at, is it time to move to a higher level of care? Is it time to look at assisted living? Does my loved one need more? Or maybe if they're in assisted living, it's time for the nursing home. But if you're in the community, it might be time to look, okay, is an Ingleside or a senior living community the right place now? Are we at that point? The other thing to consider, because that's not always the answer, of course, but a lot of times looking at adult day, looking at bringing some home care into the home, looking at, there's an exercise, if you go to cruisingthroughcaregiving.com, you can get, and Kristen will put that in the chat when she gets a minute, you can get all the worksheets from my book as well as a free chapter. Pardon me. And one of the worksheets is called the MET exercise. And let's say you don't have any money to hire a home care aide, or you don't have any money to move into a community like in Ingleside. This is a type of exercise that can help you figure out people in your friend, family, neighbor, faith community network that can bond together with you to help. So I want you to really think about utilizing that MET exercise. And if you're saying, hey, listen, I love the idea of hiring help. I love the idea of moving to Ingleside, but this is something that you can do to try to fix, or sorry, to try to improve quality of life for you as well as your loved one. Here's what we want to avoid. To me, the kiss of death for somebody who has dementia, who's at home, is when they're sitting on the couch all day watching TV and napping. What does that lead to? That there is a lack of socialization, there's a lack of stimulation. This is somebody that's probably not going to sleep well at night because they're sleeping too much during the day. If this is what you recognize in your loved one, something needs to change. If this is what you see going on. Loneliness and isolation, over and over again, the data supports that if you're lonely, if you're isolated, loneliness is subjective. Only you and I can say if we feel lonely. But if you're lonely and or isolated, you have worse health outcomes. That's you, the caregiver, but also the person that you love. Loneliness is how a person feels. Loneliness is feeling a lack of intimacy or connection, which we don't even have time to get into the impact that this whole last 2 years has done to people. And isolation is objective. It means you don't have contact with other people, or you have minimal contact with other people. And if you're the only person that your loved one sees, that's not good for them. That's not good for you. Low isolation is low contact with other people. And it's the new, you probably all heard the data up. If you sit, it's like smoking cigarettes. Well, now loneliness and weak social connections are the new sitting, right? Or the new smoking, rather. Loneliness and isolation, the data increasingly says abuse, neglect, self-neglect, financial exploitation are more likely when we are isolated or we are lonely. Physical consequences, data suggest increased stroke risk, sleep problems, more likely to be involved in accidents, more likely to have a heart attack, more risk for suicide. And then, of course, there's going to be psychological and cognitive issues. If your loved one or you don't have dementia, great, but being isolated and lonely actually increases your risk. And if the person already has Alzheimer's, they are at risk for more hallucinations. So this is also what we want to avoid. You burned out and the behaviors like the one that Jen shared. And so I am going to get into Jen's situation with her dad for a few minutes. So Jen, I typically, I'm going to do the best that I can. Kristen, if you wouldn't mind going to the consult page on our website and putting the link in, if Jen wants to do a free 15-minute consult to explore coaching, you can certainly sign up for that. But here's Jen's situation. My dad, early stage dementia, never was angry. Before that, and now he interrupts conversations to ask a question. If he doesn't get answered right away, he physically pushes and yells. He yells and has random outbursts because we ask him to do basic stuff like wear clean clothes, take a shower, lives with mom, and he's getting physical and yelling a lot more in that situation. Okay. So Jen, I want to tell you that that happens a lot. There's a lot of people that that happens to. Very common that the person was just lovely, never an angry person, and now suddenly they seem very nasty. One, so I'm going to say some stuff that might be a little controversial when you first hear it, but I want you to really think about it. So your mom and all of you have to adjust the way you talk to your dad a little bit. If he interrupts, I think I'm going to guess that people demonstrate frustration or irritation. And you can write in if I'm wrong. That is going to exacerbate his anger. The best thing to do in these situations, so okay, and your dad is an adult. Every person with dementia is a grown-up. We all know that. They should be treated with dignity and respect. But that behavior is childlike. And I want to tell you that it's kind of the opposite of what you would do with a child. With a child who's learning, you would say, Joey, if the child's name's Joey, it's not your turn. We're going to keep our conversation and you can ask a question in a little bit. You're going to try to teach. Your dad can't learn. Your dad, his brain isn't working properly if he truly has early stage dementia. So I know that this is hard. I know that this is not what you want to hear, but I would say try to answer his question right away. That's going to de-escalate him. The reason that I say that is because he can't control the way he's reacting. You can, and your mom can. I know it's hard. I know you don't want to. I know it's not fair, but your dad, and so when we don't respond in a calm way, he's going to become more exacerbated. Now, in terms of asking him to wear clean clothes and taking a shower, I'm not saying that this is okay, but you might try cueing him, like it's time to take a shower, or let's go both take a shower, or put out clean clothes. The other thing that I would suggest is really thinking about, does he really need to change clothes or take a shower every time you want him to? I know if he's not really going anywhere on that particular day, is it the worst thing for him to stay in the clothes if he's arguing with you about it? I'm concerned about your mom getting hit, okay, and pushed. So I would say for one is, and your mom is the primary caregiver, of course, and I know that this is not easy for her. It's not easy for any of you, especially this personality change. It's so unfamiliar, but I think your mom needs more help. I think whether it's moving your dad into a senior living, whether that he goes to adult day, whether you bring some home care aides in, whether you have friends and family take turns, because your mom is going to be less likely to be able to deal with those frustrating and annoying interruptions. And I don't want your mother to get hit. I don't want anybody to get hit. Even though your dad, it's not that he's intending to hurt somebody because his brain's not working properly. He can hurt somebody. So please, the best thing you can do, and I know it doesn't seem fair. I know it doesn't. I know it doesn't seem fair, but it really has to do with the way we respond to your dad. You can certainly talk to the doctor about medicine. Kristen, don't worry about it. Kristen, don't worry about the consult page. It's okay. Kirsten, this is great. Kirsten just wrote in some really good information for you, Jen, about a program that they're having about validation. And I think that this would be really, 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 really helpful for you. Okay. Jen, I know that that's probably not what you want to hear. You probably want to hear, ask the doctor for this medicine and it'll go away. You can talk to your doctor about medication interventions, but frequently it's really about changing our approach. And Kirsten just put in some really great information. Kirsten, you should put that in for everybody, not just for, I think you only sent it to Jen and the hosts and the panelists, but I bet all of the people on this program could benefit from that. All right, so Jen, if you email us at contact@generationshealth.com, we would, we can, actually, I'm going to just give you just put Jen at generationshealth.com. And if you want to set up a consult with me, you're very welcome to do that. But I love the idea that Kirsten put in for that validation program. I think that's terrific. Okay. So it's really all about looking at where your quality of life is for you and for your loved one, and what steps are you going to make to change it? What small steps are you going to ask a neighbor to stay at the house with your mom while you go get your hair cut? Are you going to look into Adult Day or Ingleside, senior living at Ingleside? Are you going to, if you're in Ingleside, are you going to talk to Kirsten and the team about maybe moving to a higher level of care? Are you going to look at maybe bringing some help into the home? You're the only, look at that. Kirsten found that. Sorry, Kristen found it. This is the link if you would like to do a free 15-minute consult with me. But at any rate, you're the only person that can make that decision to try to make the situation better. You're the only person that can do it. Or if, you and the other people helping out your loved one. But if you want quality of life to improve for you and your loved one, you got to make some change. And I encourage you to download that MET exercise, especially if you're on a budget. So you're able to, so you're really able to bring in friends, family, neighbors, think of ways that other people in your family and friend network can help you. I'm going to thank you all for joining us today. I'm going to now turn it over to Kristen and Kirsten to wrap us up. And thank you. Have a great rest of the day.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. And I'm going to turn it over to Kirsten to say goodbye and thank you to you all.
Thank you both, Jennifer and Kristen. I just want to share my contact information again. And I, at Jennifer's request, have put that information in the chat for our next educational event. Our very own memory programming director, Maureen Charlton, will be leading this event. It is virtual. I put the link in the chat for you to be able to register. And let me stop sharing your screen and share mine so I can provide you each with my contact information. Please reach out with any questions that you may have, whether it's about our communities and what we have available, or if you just need some support registering for the event that I just mentioned, I can help with that as well. So I hope to see you all on February 9th for the validation method educational event. Thank you, Kristen and Jennifer.
Thank you so much, Kirsten, and thank you, Jennifer, for that very informative presentation. And I'd like to thank you all for joining us today. I hope you enjoy the rest of your weekend. We look forward to seeing you again soon. And thank you once more to Ingleside for sponsoring this very important program. Take care.